The Poetry of Protest. Legend of Katherine Switzer. They said, "This street isn't for you." She said, "Then I'll make it mine. Not with signs, with stride, not with chance. With chance taken at a starting line. Call it a riot in running shoes, a march without a megaphone, a law rewritten with lungs and bone. Because sometimes the body is the banner, and pavement is the only podium you're ever shown. Hopkinton hums like a fuse, bib pinned, 261, like a badge and a dare. Inked as KV Switzer, a loophole in the air. Threaded through the rulebook's thin veneer, where no women allowed was the loudest jeer. Starter pistol cracks, tradition flinches, the pack surges forward, the past tightens its cinches. Her coach beside her, under a snow-squalled sky, old world doubts now eating humble pie, and a hammer thrower friend with shoulders like a front line, ready to make room when progress needs a spine. Mile by mile, the course becomes complete, not Newton's laws, Newton's hills, under rebellious feet. Heartbreak isn't a hill so much as a habit, the habit of hearing you can't when you know your constitution can. Every mile marker, a manifesto, every water stop, a wake for misogyny. Then history lunges out of the frame, a gatekeeper and a windbreaker, hands clawing not at a paper, but at the future, growling, "Give me that bib." Jock grabbed for her number. She gave him the finger. Semple tried to rewrite her story and found a shoulder checking him out of the plot. One righteous shove, and decades of dust blew off the course like confetti no one planned to toss. Flashbulbs wrote the footnote. She didn't sway. She kept running, because protest doesn't pause to explain itself. It breathes, and the breath becomes a drum line. Left, right, left, played in signature of cut time. Back to pace, back to proof. Shoelaces preaching louder than any booth. Permits? She had a pair of lungs. Permission? She had a pair of legs. She didn't break the tape so much as break the spell, the old enchantment that kept half the world watching from the curb, wondering if the streets would ever make their name reverb. Boylston waits like a verdict. The city turns its head to listen. Her cadence carves graffiti into granite. 261 in every footfall, tagged across the face of a finish line that used to look small. She crosses, no trumpet blast, no crown, just radical proof written down. Time on a clock, sweat on a brow, a woman running Boston, here and now. And what do you call that? Not a miracle. She trained for it. Not a fluke. She paid in blisters and grit. I call it civil disobedience with electrolytes. I call it a sit-in at 6-minute pace on a public right-of-way. I call it a riot without a broken window, only broken limits on display. Then the echo arranges itself into language. Photos circulate. Fists didn't fly, but barriers did. Officials clutch rulebooks like rosaries, counting fears on paper beads. But one race can become a hinge, and a hinge can turn a door, and a door can open corridors you swore were just a wall before. Remember the ledger. They said women in distance was a danger. She logged the data in the lab of life. Oxygen in, evidence out. They said the course was closed. She wrote open in cursive of her route. They said tradition. She said transition. They said pace. She said permission was never theirs to give in the first place. And legacy? Listen, every start line since has a ghost with cruel intentions, a hand that once reached for a bib and missed, reminds us that the past will always try to resist. It will take courage, it will take stubborn hope, it will take thousands of daughters tying laces and a mother's heartbeat in future races. Years spool forward and the streets keep receipts. What began as protest becomes precedent, becomes policy, becomes practice, becomes pride. 261 spreads like a quiet wildfire, a number turned eternal, a shorthand for fearlessness, a door code for anyone who ever heard not for you and punched in anyway. In Boston, old brick, older rule, now cheers the women it once tried to ridicule. Every April, the avenue remembers, and the asphalt nods to a day it learned a new word. Enter. Because the riot never needed sirens, it needed a woman who wouldn't stop, a pen that signed KV, a coach who kept faith, a faith in youth, a teammate's shoulder, a photographer's flash, and a finish line that finally told the truth. Call it what it was, a pair of running shoes becoming a printing press, a stamping liberty in repeat across the street, a body saying we belong in a dialect only effort speaks, a protest that didn't break the city, it taught the city how to behave. And if you listen close, on Boylston, you can still hear the chant beneath the cheers, not in voices, but in footsteps, not in slogans, but across the years. You do not need a podium for protest. You need a game you refuse to lose. Permission is a rumor. Prejudice is a tumor. KV Switzer, legend of boomers.